Felix Navarro's apartment smelled like synthetic wine and poor judgment. The bottle, something labeled Nebula Red, that tasted like someone's approximation of grapes filtered through sadness, sat half-empty on his desk while his friends laughed at him through the video screen. "You won't do it," Marcus said, his face pixelated from whatever outer colony he was calling from. "You're too chicken." "I am absolutely doing it," Felix insisted, pulling up the Galactic Pen Pal program interface. The initiative had launched 3 weeks ago, some diplomatic gesture toward the newly contacted Veloran Empire. Write to an alien, foster understanding, bridge the cosmic divide. Felix had ignored it completely until tonight, when loneliness and alcohol had converged into spectacular decision-making. "Write to the princess," Yuki suggested, grinning. "Go big or go home." Princess Aria of Velora. Felix found her profile, formal portrait, elegant features, those distinctive elongated ears that marked Veloran nobility. The description listed her interests as diplomatic relations, cultural preservation, and classical music. She looked about as likely to respond to random correspondence as the sun was to suddenly apologize for being too bright. Perfect. Felix's fingers flew across the keyboard, constructing the most absurdly flowery letter human consciousness had ever produced. He called himself a humble data shepherd wandering the digital plains, seeking wisdom from the jewel of the northern stars, whose grace surely rivals the binary beauty of twin suns. He included a poem about database management that rhymed algorithm with logarithm because he'd given up on dignity around Glass 2. "This is art," he announced, hitting send before sobriety could intervene. "This is my legacy." His friends applauded. Felix passed out on his couch, confident he'd never hear about this again. 5 days later, his door chimed. Felix answered it wearing yesterday's shirt, holding coffee that tasted like someone had filtered it through recycled air filters. Standing in his doorway, flanked by 2 guards in ornate armor, was the woman from the portrait. Her swept-back ears were even more elegant in person, and her clothing probably cost more than his entire station module. Princess Aria smiled, and Felix's coffee mug slipped through his fingers, shattering on the floor. "I received your letter," she said. Felix's brain had stopped processing reality somewhere around the moment he'd recognized actual royalty standing outside his apartment. Now Aria sat on his couch, the one with the broken spring and questionable stains, while her guards tried not to visibly judge his living conditions. "This is a joke," Felix said, his voice climbing octaves. "A prank. You're a very good actress hired by my terrible friends. I assure you I am quite real." Aria's ears tilted forward slightly, an expression he couldn't interpret, "though I am curious about the data shepherd description. Do databases require hurting?" "Your Highness, I was drunk, incredibly drunk. That letter was a dare, not actual correspondence meant for," he gestured helplessly at her. "Royalty." "I receive approximately 200 formal letters per week," Aria said calmly. "Diplomatic proposals, trade negotiations, carefully worded requests for favor, all identical in their sterile professionalism." She picked up a data pad and Felix recognized his own words scrolling across the screen. "Yours made me laugh, genuinely. The logarithm poem was particularly inspired." Felix sat down before his legs could give up entirely. "So you traveled across space to, what? Thank me for bad poetry." Something shifted in Aria's expression, the amusement fading into something more vulnerable. "To meet someone brave enough, or foolish enough to be authentic. Do you understand how rare that is? Every person I encounter performs for me. Calculated words, strategic smiles. You sent me absurd honesty about database management. Because I never thought you'd read it." "Exactly." She leaned forward, those striking eyes holding his. "You weren't trying to impress me or use me. You were simply yourself. When was the last time someone treated you as a person, rather than a title, Felix?" The question hung between them. Felix thought about his own loneliness, the isolation of station life. Happens to me all the time, actually. Disadvantage of being a nobody. Then you're luckier than you know. Aria stood, smoothing her elaborate clothing. I should leave. I've disrupted your morning enough. Wait, Felix surprised himself. Do you want some terrible coffee? It's genuinely awful, but it's the realest thing I can offer. Aria's smile returned, bright and genuine. I would love some. They talked for 3 hours. Somehow, impossibly, the princess stayed. Aria returned 4 days later wearing common clothes that didn't quite hide her regal bearing, but made her look startlingly normal. Her guards remained on the transport, a compromise she'd apparently fought for. Felix opened the door to find her holding a container of actual good coffee, the expensive kind he'd only seen in advertisements. Payment for the terrible coffee, she explained, and because I wanted to visit again, if that's acceptable. Felix stepped aside, still half convinced he was experiencing an elaborate hallucination. My apartment is officially the weirdest diplomatic venue in human history. Over the following weeks, impossibility became routine. Aria visited when she could slip away from obligations, and they fell into an odd friendship built on contrasts. He showed her food court cuisine. She'd never eaten anything not prepared by royal chefs. She explained Veloran politics. He'd never considered the weight of ceremonial expectations. They watched bad movies. She destroyed him at vintage video games with competitive intensity that made him suspect royal education, included strategic training applicable to digital combat. This is ridiculous, Marcus said during a video call, watching Aria argue passionately about proper game strategy in the background. You're hanging out with an alien princess. This doesn't happen to real people. I'm aware it's insane, Felix whispered. What do I do? Don't fall for her, obviously. That way lies absolute disaster. Too late. Felix was already halfway gone, pulled under by Aria's sharp intelligence, her unexpected humor, the way her ears expressed emotions her diplomatic training tried to hide. She was brilliant and trapped and real in ways that made his chest ache. One evening, sitting on his terrible couch watching Earth's orbital sunrise through his small viewport, Aria spoke quietly. This is the freest I've felt in years. Here with you I can just exist. Felix wanted to say something meaningful, something worthy of the moment. Instead, he said, my couch spring is digging into my back and I'm pretty sure that's a coffee stain from last month. Aria laughed, her shoulder brushing his. Perfect. Felix realized 2 things simultaneously. He was completely in love with her, and this could never, ever work. The end came with diplomatic efficiency. Veloran officials tracked Aria to the station, scandalized by reports of unsupervised visits to a human civilian. Felix watched through his viewport as formal ships arrived, protocols snapping back into place like chains. Aria was recalled to proper duties. She managed one brief message. I'm sorry, they won't let me return. Felix spent 3 days in numb acceptance. Obviously, this was how it ended. You don't send a joke letter to a princess and end up with anything except a good story and lingering heartbreak. He was preparing to move on, or at least pretend to, when his door chimed again. Aria stood there alone, wearing travel clothes and carrying a small bag. I have approximately 30 minutes before my handlers realize I've given them the slip again. You shouldn't be here, Felix said, even as relief flooded through him. You'll get in trouble. I'm already in trouble. The council has demanded I cease all contact with you. Apparently, our friendship represents a diplomatic complication and demonstrates poor judgment on my part. Her ears flattened slightly. He'd learned that meant anger. They've prepared an entire schedule of appropriate social engagements to redirect my attention. Felix's heart cracked cleanly. So this is goodbye. Actually, I came to ask you something. Aria stepped closer, her expression intense. Would you consider coming to Velora, officially, as a cultural liaison or human affairs advisor or whatever title makes the bureaucrats comfortable? The position doesn't matter. What matters is, She paused, vulnerability breaking through royal composure. What matters is that I'm choosing you, openly, despite every protocol against it. Felix's apartment felt very small and very large simultaneously. You're asking me to leave my life here. I'm asking if you consider building a different life. With me. I realize it's absurd. We met because of a drunken letter. But Felix, you made me remember what it feels like to be seen as a person. I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose you. Felix thought about his lonely apartment, his small existence, his comfortable isolation. Then he looked at Aria, this brilliant woman who'd responded to his joke with courage and impossibility. Yes, he said. Absolutely yes. His calm screen erupted with incoming calls. Marcus's face appeared